Okay, we're back now with segment 2 of Money and Medicine on Behind the Scrubs, Friends of Medicine podcast. And I'm here joined today with these amazing professionals that help us in our journey, in our financial journeys throughout our careers in healthcare. We really appreciate you guys coming out this evening to share your knowledge with our viewers, from medical students, nurses, nurse practitioners, attendings at the end of their careers. But for this segment, I want to focus a little bit more on, we've followed your advice, we've made healthy choices for our finances, and, we've saved cash, right? What do we do in terms of thinking about investment opportunities? Who do we go to? How should we approach investing as busy healthcare professionals? Should we just give it all to a broker and tell them do whatever? Or should we start educating ourselves, and where do we go for that knowledge? And then after we talk about that a little bit, I want to talk about, once we've gotten those investment opportunities and we've become successful, how do we protect what we've earned over these years going into retirement now, and kids are going off to college, etc. And we want to start enjoying the fruit of our labors. So if you guys could touch on those aspects now for our more mature viewers who have actually gotten to this point of financial success.
Awesome. So I want to start off by saying any information shared today is information, not advice. I am a financial advisor, not your financial advisor. So we don't give blanket advice.
I said ditto.
Yes, ditto, right? You get it.
It's for educational purposes.
Information and educational purposes. And if you'd like to have a one-on-one, we can arrange that. So now that you've done everything that we talked about in the first segment, so focused on debt, included debt as a part of the conversation, understand the importance of your credit report, your credit score, using money wisely. Now you're like, okay, I am now an attending, right?
I want to buy that G-Wagon.
I want to buy that G-Wagon. I'm going to ask you, how much money have you put towards your retirement? Because you can either be young and poor or old and poor. Right? Yeah. And so most medical students and most people have already experienced being young and poor, right? Passing over opportunities repeatedly, not because maybe you didn't want to take the opportunities, but you weren't in a position to. So now that you moved on to attending, we want to slide out of that being young and poor and make sure that we're not old and poor. And so retirement is definitely going to come before the G-Wagon. Yes. And so where do we start with retirement? To answer your question, do you just give all your money to an advisor and say, hey, you do it, I'm going to be in the OR room? No. I want you to be present. I want to have a conversation with you. I want you to understand what we're doing with your money so that you can explain it to other people. You can explain it to your loved ones. You can have a great understanding, because when you understand, then that takes away the fear. Retirement is a heavy focus of mine for all of my clients, because let's face it, everybody wants to live forever, but nobody wants to work forever. Right?
So true.
You know, when you think about it, but then it's like, okay, you want to live forever, but you don't want to work forever, but you're spending all your money now because you're not able to delay that gratification. And I know it can be challenging, especially if you've done all these years of medical school and residency, and you're seeing people around you with these material items, and you're like, okay, I'm ready for this. I am an and girl. I'm not an or girl. What does that mean? Oftentimes people will tell you either you're spending all your money or you're saving all your money. I am an and girl. I'm going to save my money and I'm going to spend some of my money. I am not the financial advisor to tell you save and invest all of your money and never buy nice things. That's not the advice that I give you, but I do want you to prioritize. When you prioritize, then you can plan. And so you can do everything in decency and in order. Retirement is at the top of the list before the G-Wagon. I would also say to think about the home purchase. If you can delay that a little longer, delay it a little longer. Because there are a lot of phantom costs that come along with owning a home. And while you're adjusting to your new salary from resident to attending physician, I don't feel like you should voluntarily sign up for the burden of, okay, maybe I did the physician's program and I didn't have to bring any money to the table and I can afford the monthly payment, the mortgage payment, but now the water heater went out and now I need a new roof. And roofs in South Florida, Costs about $40,000. Ask me how I know.
Yeah.
Right? So why burden yourself with those things when you can say, okay, I know that I don't want to work forever. I want to live forever. Let me make sure that I look at my retirement. Let me continue to look at debt. Let me do what Dave suggested, and that's put some cash aside. Let's have an opportunity account. And it's very important to start off in that transitionary space from resident to attending with the proper mindset. Because if you start off with the proper mindset, you won't go into it feeling like you got to play catch up. And oftentimes people feel like you have to play catch up. And anytime you feel like you have to play catch up, you are chasing. Anytime you chase, you will get tired. That's with anything. That's whether we're talking about physically or your investment. So just some things to think about: retirement, delaying gratification, and then thinking about running your race without having to chase other people's dreams and hopes and things like that.
What would you say is a good benchmark, right? I always like to say, what's your short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals? And then being able to reverse engineer the outcome and then going from there. So if you're saying, hey, don't buy a house, but at what point would you say, I have enough cash in the bank and it might be a good time for me to buy as of right now?
So let's look at the numbers, right? I'm glad that you mentioned I have enough cash. So how are you handling debt? And so we've been doing a lot of talk about student loan debt, but the fact is a lot of people have consumer debt, credit card debt, all this consumer debt. And let me explain debt to you in another way. I like to tell my clients to imagine themselves, you are at the pier and you get into your yacht, and everyone gets into their yacht, and a rowboat, not a yacht. Take it down a little bit. I like nice things. I like nice things. So you get into your rowboat and you're rowing and you're rowing and you're rowing and your arms are getting tired and you're rowing and you see people in front of you and they're like, we all started at the same space, but for some reason I'm just rowing and I'm still right here and you're rowing and you're there. What are you doing that I'm not doing? We make the same salary. You're rowing, you appear to be rowing the same that I'm rowing. Well, oftentimes people have holes in the bottom of their boat and those holes are debt. High interest credit cards. And I know not all debt is bad, but you have to have a handle on that, because if you don't have a handle on your debt and you get in that boat and you attempt to row, no matter how much you row, let me say this another way. I'm here. I want to keep up with the Joneses. I'm ready for my G-Wagon. I'm ready for the condo. I'm ready for the house. You could be rowing and rowing and rowing, and now you're exhausted. And then you still have to go into surgery. And then you still have to see patients and clients. And then what happens? What does that start doing? Affecting your mental health. Because you have created the holes in the bottom of your boat because you didn't think about how you wanted to do things. And so now you're chasing something that you signed for this. You put yourself in this position. So to go back to answer your question, there is no one size fits all. I always look at the numbers. What do your numbers say and what have you done? Show me what you have done. Have you started saving for retirement? Have you aggressively looked at a debt management plan? Have you done that? Or are you saying, you know what, I can charge it because when I get a bonus or my end of the year bonus or whatever, I'll just pay it and then you charge it back up again. So there is no, again, one size fit all response to that. I like to look at your behaviors and your actions and what you're doing. And then your behaviors and your actions are going to tell me if you're ready to buy a house. You're going to tell me if you're ready for a vacation home. They're going to tell me if you're ready to expand and grow in other ways, because how are you ready for dessert and you still have food on your plate? That's something to think about. Think about you're at a nice restaurant, and at a good restaurant, the waiter is not constantly coming up to you and saying, can I help you? Can I help you? Can I help you? They are watching. How have you placed your fork and your knife? Have you finished certain aspects of your meal? They know when to come in and take the tray. If you still have all this food on your plate, they're going to stand back and wait until you finish. The same thing with savings, investment, next opportunities. Are you ready for those opportunities? And a lot of times people don't look at it that way because they just want to pile more food and more food and more food. And then they're sitting there and they're like, this is too much. I'm full. I'm stuffed. You didn't finish your breakfast first and you wanted dinner. Makes sense.
So, Hyacinth, I do have a question for you. So you have mentioned a lot about the retirement,
Yes.
about covering for the debt.
Yes.
Is there like a magical formula on how much should you retire on a monthly basis?
So that great question is, it's really going to depend on your lifestyle and your needs and your wants. So to zoom in a little bit on how much you should be putting away for retirement. First of all, if you're working somewhere and they're giving you a match, that's free money, right? So let's start there, right? So that's something that all of us can think about. Oftentimes people don't want to put anything in retirement. So if you start with making sure you're putting in enough to get the match, I think that's a great starting place. Then after you've done that, then let's look at, first of all, am I living below my means? Meaning when I was a resident, maybe my salary was $50,000. Now I'm an attending and my salary is $200,000. Have I did I increase my expenses so that they're $200,000 or $250,000? Or have I just bumped them up to $90,000? And if so, what's that difference? What am I going to do with all this money? Because you've listened to this podcast and you understand that you don't want to be poor when you're old, right? So now we're looking at the numbers and we're looking at the amount of your living expenses versus your salary. Financial planning is very simple. It's all about the numbers. How much is coming in? How much is going out? Now we need to find places to put it, right? We have the overage. Oftentimes people have the overage and they say, oh, I'm going to go shopping. I'm going to do this and this and this. And you can do those things after you have put money away for retirement, after you have put money away for your emergency fund, after you have put money away for your, I like to call it my Save My Life account. If something happens and you need to break the glass to save your life, what do you have set aside? So everybody's number is different. Someone who may be single with no children and they live a modest lifestyle, their retirement savings is going to be different than someone maybe who is married with 3 children, right? Because not only do they need to think about the time when they're not working only for themselves, but when they stop working and they're retired, they still want income to come in. How am I going to still support my spouse, right? Because if I stop working and I don't have any money, is she still going to be your spouse? I don't know, right? And then we all want to believe that when the children turn 18, they no longer need our money, but that's not the case. So retirement and the magic number is really going to be a case-by-case situation. But before we can start talking about that, we have to make sure that the foundation is set. And once the foundation is set, then we can start talking about retirement. And I know we're going to get into insurance. It's a very, very important topic. So just want to let our audience know just to think about how you're doing things. It's not always what you're doing. Mostly it's how you're doing it and the energy that you're bringing. We call that intention to what you're doing. And I really want all of our listeners, especially those in the medical field, because I know you all have a lot of stress. I want you to move from the space of feeling like, I gotta catch up. I gotta do this. I'm running out of time. I couldn't do this. Please take that energy out of your financial plan. Take that out of your personal financial mindset, and you will have better success when you remove that energy from the table.
So Dave, tell us a little bit about when we get to that point and we put all these practices into our financial plan. What are some of your more successful clients doing with their money, and what advice do you have for a young professional that is looking up to a physician or a nurse practitioner that's very wealthy? Where are they moving their money when they're looking at investments and planning for their future?
I want to take a little bit of a step back and talk about protecting wealth even before necessarily having wealth. Mm-hmm. As you know, in medicine, it's not a matter of if you'll be sued, but when. Right? It's just known that there'll be some malpractice in medicine, and it's not because of anything other than, you name it, right?
It's part of the territory.
It's a part
Is that true?
Well, I personally have not been sued.
Yeah, knock on wood.
Knock on wood. But like you said, it happens to everyone at some point. Even if you're part of a group practice and something happens and, you're by proxy.
Exactly. You're just listed in that.
Sort. Exactly.
Yep. So what often that I find is that people are leaving the hospital, and because they have malpractice insurance with their work, they feel as though they're now protected against litigation. But as we all know, we live in an incredibly litigious society. Yeah. And a simple auto accident can create a lawsuit. So one of my clients during residency got sued for $1 million for a fender bender. He said the person got out of his car, went up and started walking towards him just to exchange information.
Saw the white coat.
Saw the white coat. You guys are a beacon for lawsuits. It screams, I make money, sue me. Right? So he got sued, and all of a sudden he said the guy grabbed his neck and went down.
That's for all the medical students walking through Aventura Mall with their stethoscopes around their neck. Be careful.
Yes, come and get me. Come and get me. That's what it's telling people, right? And it doesn't matter if you're making money or have a ton of assets yet. In Florida, they can put a judgment on your income of up to 25% until you satisfy that lawsuit. Right. So even though this resident was not making a significant amount of money yet, he had incredible potential. He's making $1 million a year now, right? So they would have easily put, now luckily he had a prominent attorney in his family that was able to take care of this situation for him, right? Because it was not legitimate. But we can all make mistakes. So having great auto insurance, an umbrella policy, this is a excess liability coverage on top of your automobiles, on top of your home or apartment, or like I have a golf cart. My umbrella policy, right, covers my golf cart, right? True Florida living is, you got to have a golf cart, right? Mm-hmm. So in that situation, that's just excess liability coverage. It's one of the best bangs for your buck in the insurance world. It might be anywhere between, $300 to $500 for $1 million of excess liability, right? You can get usually about a $5 million umbrella policy. Once you're more mature and you have significant assets, it might be $1,500 a year. We're talking. It is
definitely worth it.
It is a no-brainer to implement in a plan. And it's often ignored by the financial industry, right? Because, I don't write auto insurance, but it's our job to make sure that our clients, all of their assets and all of their income is not accessible to creditors.
And at what phase do you recommend?
Residency. Soon, right? So an umbrella policy costs $1 million, costs $500 a year. If you need to create debt, but your income is protected in the future, if something happens in residency, your income, 25% of that income could be at risk. That is huge, right? And that $500 cost is not going to be a significant portion long-term in your plan, right? So this is early on planning medical specialty disability insurance, right? Disability insurance it's paycheck insurance. Mm-hmm. Think of it, if you had an ATM machine just spitting out cash in this living room, you'd probably add some locks on that door, right? We'd have some cameras on it to make sure that nobody's messing with it. Right. We all have kids, they like to unplug stuff. Maybe have something that zaps them if they try to unplug it, right? We would protect a machine that was spitting out cash. That's us. If we just get up and go to work, so you need to protect your income. It's income insurance. And that's it. They're not all created equal, right? There's specific contracts for specialties that can cover you in medicine. That's absolutely key, right? Estate planning for people that are married, making sure you have a will, right? In case, knock on wood, but if something happened to people, and if you're moving from a different state down to Florida, oftentimes that estate plan from a different state doesn't count in Florida, right? Term life insurance, just basic life insurance to protect your family. I think one of the highest insurers nowadays is GoFundMe, right?
Right.
And that drives me, I've told my wife, if I pass away and somebody starts a GoFundMe page, I am going to learn how to haunt people. I don't know if it's allowed. I'll figure it out. You better make sure that person knows I had plenty of life insurance. My family is going to be okay. My kids will be okay, right? Because I've done that basic fundamental planning. I think of it as triaging the plan. We got to take care of the risk, get those off your shoulders so that now while you're building wealth, you can drive a little bit faster, right? You can enjoy life a little bit more, knowing that if something bad happens, you'll be okay. Right. So those are just some basic fundamental. I just wanted to take a step back a little bit and talk about that, because you want to do that early on, not wait until you're wealthy to do that, because people can still have access to your wealth. So at that point, then you can start really learning how to focus on saving. You ask, what's that kind of go-to number. I like to think about the average savings rate is less than 5% of income. And then people come to us and they're so stressed out and panicked when they're in their 50s and 60s and they've never prioritized their future self. So I like to think, I'm 42. Will 52-year-old Dave like me?
I love
Right?
it.
And you know what I mean? Like 42-year-old Dave actually likes 32-year-old Dave because I put in the work and I have wealth on my balance sheet because I prioritized it. So understanding that, and 5% doesn't do it. It's usually just whatever the match is on the 401k is what they put into work. And that's not enough.
So what do you advise those folks that have gotten to that point in their careers that have not put in that work?
Double
They
time.
weren't disciplined.
It's double time, baby.
it's never too late to start. That old Chinese proverb, right? When's the best time to plant a tree?
No.
20 years ago
I know.
or today? Like, get started. You can still have an impact on your life. You may have to, we want our clients to save 20+% of their gross income. Sometimes that's not doable overnight, right? Because of expenses and student loans and you name it, right? Children are expensive, but as income goes up, right, you can take little slivers off of that and get up to that percentage. That will help people retire with dignity, right? And then also retirement planning is so key, but our industry does a poor job of labeling accounts, right? So 401ks, IRAs, Roth IRAs, right? They're retirement accounts. So people think simply because they're contributing to a 401k or an IRA or Roths that they're planning for retirement, but it's often at a very low percentage. You need to save outside of those accounts a significant portion, right? Like you mentioned, that you got to get the free money. Everything outside of that should be in liquid funds because you don't have access to those 401ks without a 10% penalty and all the taxes owed until 59 and a half years old. So if you're 35, maxing out that plan and an opportunity to buy into a practice approaches itself and it's all sitting in there, you may have to take a massive hit to get the money out. So you need to have a lot of what we call liquidity, right? Access to capital. And it is truly should be planned for the future, right? Future you or retirement, but it doesn't have to be wrapped up in what our industry labels as retirement accounts.
But I have a little bit of a different spin on that because I think your money should always be making you money. And of course, having 6 months of reserves or liquidity is always a great plan. But just having the money sit in some account right there, and right now the stock markets and 401ks, they fluctuate.
It doesn't have to be. So you can have a liquid investment account. So it's still working for you. It could be, you name the type of aggressive nature you want to have it sitting in, right? But it doesn't have to be, I don't mean sitting in cash or sitting underneath your mattress, right? Those are very important to have an emergency fund, or if you own a business emergency fund at the same time. All other assets that you're putting to work should be growth oriented in some way, shape, or form, right? So that could be, nowadays there are CDs paying a lot of money, or even money markets paying decent percentages, but in years past that was not happening at all. But you could have a diversified investment account that's not in a 401k, that if you needed to get the money within 5 business days, you can have access to that account without any penalties to get to it. So it could still be growing for you, but if you need it for an opportunity, you can shift quickly for a business or a partnership agreement, a surgery center, a real estate deal, you name it, you can get to it pretty quickly. Okay. Yeah. Great question though. Yeah. You don't want all of it just sitting on the sideline.
Guys, if you're really enjoying the content here in this episode, I want to encourage you to follow us on our social media and reach out to us. You can send us an email if you want more detailed information. We're actually planning a Money in Medicine finance workshop series, and I think we're planning for the end of this year to have our first one. I think it'd be great if you guys tune in. We'll have a virtual option also, and you can get your year started in 2024 on the right foot financially. Doesn't matter where you are in your career. And on that note, I want to have Pedro end us off with some discussions on what some of his clients who have been successful as physicians or nurses that have started their own businesses, their own practices, and at that stage now where they'd want to buy or sell a practice.
So I think that this matches very well of how previous topic started about. So what happens whenever they feel like they need to catch up, right? So when you position that question, I was thinking, it really does depend on the level of risk that they want to get into. So all of these investments that we have spoken about now, they're very safe. So we're talking about 401k, we're talking about index funds. We're talking.
The 401k not so safe, but I get it.
It is probably,
Traditionally, I guess, generally speaking, that's the perception that most people
But
have.
No, it's false, because most 401ks and retirement accounts, I love that you talked about them not being liquid. They're invested in the stock market. And I don't want anyone,
Correct.
I don't want anyone listening to this informative podcast to think that when you invest in the stock market,
That
it's
is
safe.
Yeah, good point.
It's not.
It is volatile.
It's
It
not.
will be emotional. It's an emotional roller
They're
coaster.
traditional, not safe.
fair enough, but
Yeah.
it does
That's
have a
the
track
word. That's the
record
word,
that
yeah.
it has shown growth over decades. That overall, it can be considered as an option that, it's hands off, that you don't have to actively invest in it every day. But if you look at the track record of it, it should yield certain returns, obviously knowing that future returns are not guaranteed. So if you're trying to start your own business, or if you're trying to acquire a business, this is something that it does require a lot more of effort. It does require a lot more of involvement, more time that it needs to come into it, and risk as well. Because in this case, of course, you can be in a very prevalent industry like the healthcare industry is. It has a high demand that, knowing that around 80% of the physicians in the nation that are over 60 years old, you're going to have work forever. And as well, there's not that many students coming into the system. So the demand is in there. There's a very short supply of physicians. And starting a business is not for the faint-hearted. It's quite difficult. It does require capital. It does require investment. It does require emotional connection to the business as well. So the level of risk that you're able to recognize from yourself will dictate if this is a good strategy for you or not. So I want to start the conversation with that. I'm a firm believer that mostly everyone should, at the very least, try to have their own business at some point, just to have an idea if that's for them or not. But it's not for everyone. Now, let's say that this is something that you have a risk profile that you can afford to go into this level of capital commitment, this level of time commitment and effort, and you want to start your own business. So now, what are you going to start? At the end of the day, the beautiful thing about businesses is that you can start any sort of business out there, as long as it's legal, of course. But that's number one.
To Miami.
Now, on the second thing is, you should be smart about the type of business that you're starting. So if you have an expertise in the healthcare industry, I don't recommend you getting into roofing if you haven't done roofing in the past.
Right.
So you need to understand what are the traits and the skill sets that you have that are going to give you an unfair advantage compared to the competition. So let's say this is a podcast for the physicians. So hopefully everybody...
Nurses and dentists.
Nurses,
Healthcare
dentists, healthcare professionals. So let's just put the assumption that most of the people listening, they know how to operate in a hospital, clinics, or any other healthcare services organization. So I will first look at the skill sets that you have today. So if you are a pediatrician, for example, opening an outpatient pediatrician office, it seems like a very clear option. There's many other things that you can do in that world as well. Like, for example, you can open a pediatrician network. You can open a center for kids with special needs. There's many aspects, but just for simplicity purposes, let's say that you want to open a pediatrician's office. It takes time to open it. It takes capital. And first of all, you likely don't know all the pieces that they come into play until you have done it. Therefore, that's in the financial world, any unknown is a risk. So therefore, one of the things that I recommend a lot of my clients that they're just starting off is, have you spoken to the people around you that they have done it before, so you can have an understanding on what are the pieces that they're needed for you to achieve your goal?
Right. Surrounding yourself with the who's,
With the
not
who's.
necessarily the how's.
Exactly.
It's, in my opinion, one of the most important lessons that I've learned, that I share with everyone, trying to start off a new business, something outside of their field. Surround yourself with, experts that know what they're talking about, have been there, have done that, and persons like yourself that have gone into these areas. So that's a good point.
Absolutely. So starting a business is always going to be very difficult. Now, there's a way to speed track it. So a way to speed track it that, it has been going around for hundreds of years. It's buying a business. It does sound, very Wolf of Wall Street type of mentality, but in reality, it's very common for somebody to inherit a business, not from the same family, but from the previous owner, that maybe an employee that just buys into a business, or somebody that is a customer of a business, and then they just put an offer and they purchase the business. So there's a beauty about acquiring a business that, first of all, you already have a determined system and process that is cash flowing, hopefully positive cash flowing, but at the very least it's generating revenue. Secondly, it comes with staff. It comes with people that they already know how to operate into that business. And then, and this is with the comment that I just mentioned before, hopefully it's cash flowing. So what does that mean? That means that the day that you purchase it, you are already receiving money in your pocket. You don't have to build it from scratch and have months or years up until you see a penny of the business that you started.
Right.
And, one of the most common concerns that I have heard is, you need to have a lot of money to buy a business, which that can be true. For example, you saw Elon Musk buying Twitter for $40 billion. You need to have a little bit of money to buy that, right? But if you want to buy a business...
Billion, right?
Billion.
Yeah.
40 trillion.
Alien.
We'll see if he gets there. But you can easily buy businesses with putting even less than 20% of down payment on what the loan of the business might be. You can even get them for free. Obviously, this requires some sort of structure and somebody that knows what they're doing. And I think that
it's true about you can put anywhere from 90 to 100% financing for buying businesses.
Absolutely.
Especially if you have that medical doctor license. It's like it's
responsible with your credit history.
It's like
right?
gold, honestly, with the lending. The lending industry.
Physicians is probably one of the biggest cheat codes for the lending industry.
From buying houses to buying businesses.
Yes.
Wish I had that.
I can rent you mine.
Anthony Combs. Dr. Anthony Combs.
See, that might be one of the legal things that we spoke about.
We need to get the lawyers on this podcast very soon.
No, but in reality, you can get a business basically for free if you structure it correctly. And by structure, what I mean is, getting what people are calling now in social media other people's money.
OPM.
OPM.
Yeah.
Can you give an example, like a specific real world example
a bank.
of
A bank is other people's money. So
right? No. I mean of getting a business purchase for free, like that concept. Just I can't grasp my mind around
I
that.
can weigh in on that.
Yeah.
Like a real world example.
So let's just say that the yearly revenue of a business is around 800,000, and the seller is going to sell it to you for, let's just say, 500,000, right? The purchase price. Well, a bank will look at the annual revenue, and they'll look at that, since if it's in the doctor physician industry, and they'll lend you up to the 800, but then you'll purchase it for 500, which gives you enough room for that, buying for working capital or buying equipment. Okay. In addition to that. So you can buy it for less, but they'll lend to you all the way to the revenue of the thing. And even if you're a startup in your 1 or 2 years of residency or experience, they'll give you $500,000 to $750,000 to start your own practice. But I like that model better, where you're acquiring a new business, because then all the headache of starting a business, I mean,
Overhead costs.
there's 3 reasons why businesses fail. There is, if you're undermanaged, meaning you don't have the right operating team, the mentors, etc. Undermarketed, you need leads, clients, bringing them in, and then undercapitalized. But capital can hire the right management team, can hire the right marketing team, ads and things of that nature. So it's one of the most important thing in my opinion. And if you can then pair that with physician loans and buy that, but then all the headache of trying to find the customers, you're buying a whole database or the existing customers from an established business. So if you're buying $1 million business and it's netting $200,000-$300,000, that's $300,000 income that you're acquiring immediately, just like that.
So as Anthony mentioned, one of the things is that when you buy a business, you're buying the proof that the business works. So that's why it makes it so attractive for somebody to go ahead and put an offer out there. One of the strategies that I like the most is seller financing. So that's very common, and that's probably the oldest one of them all, which is that the buyer, or let's say that in this case it's a physician that is buying a practice, speaks to the seller of the practice and tells them, listen, I'm not going to pay you anything up from out of the business for X or Y reason. Might be because likely, there's competitors coming into the market, or we expect that there's going to be new rules and regulations in place that they might impact the business. But how about I give you the profitability for the next 3 years up to an X amount of dollars. So therefore, what you're getting is you're getting a lot of the liabilities for the seller. So for example, the rent of the business is guaranteed by the new buyer. The payment of the payroll of the employees is guaranteed by the new buyer. But also the buyer is not putting any money up front. So the seller is getting less liabilities and the promise of future capital in the form of the purchase, which in this case is seller financing or an earnout. So that's one of the strategies that can exist in order to purchase a business.
I guess another example of that is like if you buy the business for $1 million, and then you can have the seller be the bank for $500,000, and then you're going to pay him back for like 3 years, 4 years, whatever that you agree upon. And then the other half of the money is being financed by the bank. So it's a very common way of being able to structure business acquisitions.
And in those cases, given that the seller has financed like half of it, likely the entrepreneur doesn't have to put much capital up front.
Have you guys seen any issues with, because we do a lot of exit planning for business owners. Sometimes they think or believe their business is worth millions of dollars because it's their baby, right? Like, and it is producing revenue for them and they're enjoying it. However, when they go to actually get the sale price, it's not worth what they thought it was. Oftentimes because they're writing off every profit known to man, right? So they don't want to pay taxes, right? So they're using a lot of the business owner write-offs that are available to them. But then when they want to go to sell, the business on paper is not worth what they were hoping.
That is one of the number one challenges that I face with lending. I always say, look, know what you want to do 2 years ahead of the road.
Is it just 2? Because we usually talk about 5 years just to hopefully get...
For lending, it's 2. For lending, it's 2. If you're buying businesses, they typically look at 3 years.
Okay.
But in the case of what I always tell my clients is like, look, if you're cash flowing and you're crushing it and you don't want to pay as much taxes, your CPA can make you look like a millionaire, they make you look like you're broke. If you don't want to pay taxes, go broke. Show little amounts of profit. But then that means that you're not going to be able to use the bank's money. So if you're wanting to leverage a few $100,000, et cetera, or $1 million, whatever the bank's money to be able to grow and scale your company, you need to show a minimum. The simplest terms is like 12.5% of net income. It's a 1.25 ratio. For every 100,000 you want to borrow, you have to pay back 100. You have to show net income of 125. which you can roll back your interest and depreciation, not to get into the details of that, but 12.5% plus or minus is really what the ballpark figure is. And that will also help you if you're trying to buy a house, a mortgage. There are a lot of these different factors. So if you're looking, hey, I'm going to buy a house, I'm going to start a business, I'm going to do all this, try to show a little bit of money. Yeah, you'll pay a little bit in taxes, but if you were able to acquire a few $100,000 in a business loan, how long will it take you to recoup your money? What's your ROI, return on investment? I put the $100,000, all right, I have to pay, whatever, $10,000, $20,000 in taxes. I put that in some investment, put it back into my business, and it'll take me 3 months to earn my money back. Cool. That's a mindset, a perspective that you should be incorporating into everything that you do as well.
Yeah. So just understanding when you want to exit that business or eventually sell the business, because the vast majority of businesses don't sell because of that mistake. You got to start thinking of this before you're like, you know what, I want to leave right now.
So one of the things, Dave, and 2 points to what you have mentioned right now. So one of the things that really hurts the entrepreneurs is expectations. Expectations of the purchase price, because it's what's on the news. So just using the example of Elon Musk with Twitter or X right now, you see the big numbers out there, right? Because those are the outliers. That's not what's common. So you see in the stock market, and it's very common that a business sells for 20 times EBITDA, or you see that they sell for 50 times EBITDA. But that's not the reality. Mostly every small business out there, the average sells for an average of like 2 times EBITDA. Now, whenever they get certain size, over $1 million and so on, they start getting into the 3, 4, 5, 6. And, if you get to $100 million, it's going to be worth more. So it's basically, it works in reverse of economies of scale. So economies of scale, the more that you buy, the cheaper that you can get the price per unit. With businesses, it's the opposite. So the larger the business, the bigger the multiplier that it's going to get, because it's a more solid option for an investor. Less risk.
Yeah, makes sense.
Now, I completely agree with what Anthony was saying about how the business looks like in terms of profitability. That's going to impact the valuation that they get. But I do get a lot of deals that they are off market. So that means that the seller, it's not even thinking about selling. So, they focus on the business, they're growing it, they are lowering the taxes so they don't have to pay the government. And of course, they reinvested in the business, capital expenditures, all of that good stuff. Now, there's ways to capture that value without that being cooked into your books. But the reality of that, it's that the business owners has to know about this, or be with somebody that can give them the correct advice about this. So for example, let's say your income tax or your profit and loss statement for the business. Likely, as the business owner, you're gonna run all of your personal insurances through the business because it's a tax deductible item, right? But whenever you're selling this to someone, this is not a business expense that is going to continue for the buyer. The buyer is not going to pay for your dog's pet insurance, or it's not going to exactly, or for your children's insurance.
Think about that part of it, yeah.
But it is the job of the business owner to let the buyer know, listen, last year I spent X amount of dollars in insurance, that this expense will not continue moving forward. Therefore, that's an add back to my EBITDA, so my profitability goes up.
Maybe you want to explain what EBITDA is, just
most of our viewers won't know. I was about to say that, yeah.
So EBITDA is earnings before income, tax, depreciation, and amortization. It's EBITDA. It's a very awkward word to say. But
it's an acronym.
It's an acronym, which
it's essentially how they evaluate your business. So you have $1 million in gross income, revenue, then you have 100,000 in net income, what you show and pay for taxes. But then you can roll back, like if you paid $50,000 in interest, $50,000 in depreciation, you're now like at 200,000 net income, and that's what the valuation of your company when you want to sell or buy.
So then depending upon the industry, you get a multiple of that.
In the price of a sale, exactly. So EBITDA, just some simple, you can correlate it to profit pretty well.
Okay.
So your business is actually an asset as well, just like real estate or any type of other investments that you do, you can build a business, you can buy a business, you can grow it and sell it for 2 times, 5 times, 10 times of what it's worth from a standpoint. So it's all different depending on your effort and what you want.
And that is a very big point that we can speak about it in a full podcast about it. But the difference in between income and wealth. So one of the things that we have been focused on in this conversation is mostly income, right? And how to save for retirement and how to invest for the future, and which is based out of the income. But this value that Anthony was just saying about the multiplier that the business sells, that's not income. That is wealth that is being created for the business owner. So in these cases, I have a friend of mine that he mentions that most of the wealth is created not through income, but by liquidation events. So what that means is that there's a few types of liquidation events. So for example, whenever you get bonuses, whenever you sell stock, you get an inheritance, or whenever you sell your business. These events, that there are a lot fewer than income. Income is like a paycheck. You get it very often. These events, they tend to outweigh how much you get in income. So that's why building an asset, like for example, your retirement account, buying real estate property, or your business, it's such a catalyzer for wealth. So that's why it's very, very important to keep an eye on the investments that you plan on doing in the future, because the income and your paycheck, that's only a piece of the equation. And likely you can make that pie a lot larger, focusing in these assets that you're acquiring over time.
Wow, guys, I think we're almost out of time, and I would love to keep this conversation going. I would rather be in high risk surgery than dealing with high risk money. It's a lot to wrap my mind around, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers appreciate the time that you've taken to explain certain basic topics to us. I would encourage everyone to stay up to date with our events. We're going to plan this Money in Medicine workshop series where every month we're going to get together with a nice networking event and have experts like ours here today on this podcast come and actually give real world examples and give the opportunities for more knowledge and what we should be doing with our money from the time we hit medical school or nursing school right up until retirement. So I appreciate every single one of you for being on the show tonight. And if you click the links below, you'll find each and every one of our guests today on Behind the Scrubs podcast. And I look forward to continuing this conversation and look forward to our workshop coming up in December. Any closing remarks from any of you, like final words to our young viewers?
I wanted to say thank you, Andre, for putting this all together and for really caring about, number one, your viewers and how you want to impact them and what you're doing on top of you being a trauma surgeon and putting this together, running Friends of Medicine. I've been to your events and I stand behind it 100%. And it's phenomenal, honestly, how you're able to impact a lot of people in this capacity. So I wanted to say thank you.
I appreciate that. It's been quite a journey. I've met some amazing people like yourselves, and I just want to be able to share that with everyone that I meet and everyone that's coming up, everyone that looks up to me also. Like, if you experience success, you should be able to share that with others, and it all comes back to you. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate those words. They mean a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having us. When we met, a year ago, I loved your vision of what you wanted to do for the community. It's what I do at a small level for each client that I'm working with, but your ability to do that at scale has been impressive. So, thanks for having us. Hopefully we provided some basic information that people can take home and take that and put it to use. Obviously, we're all here to help if they need it.
Yes. Thank you. And I encourage everyone to visit their websites and their Instagram, social media, LinkedIn, learn a bit more about them and how they can help you with your financial success in your future, not just for yourself, but your families.
So I just want to add to take your time. Remember that this is your story. Your life is your story. Everyone in your life that you meet are just characters in your story. What that means is you get to plan it out emphasis on plan out what you want to do, who you want to be, how you want to get there. Do not compare yourselves to other people. Focus on yourself. This is your story and you get to make the best of it. And absolutely, thank you so much for having us, for having me, for putting this together. I think what you're doing at Friends of Medicine is such amazing work. It is much needed work. Keep going. I know that it's a lot of work.
It is.
We are here to support you and help you. And just keep doing it, man. We need this. People need money, medicine, and I'm going to throw on the other M that I love, mental health. Very, very important. So thank you.
Thank you. Final words, Pedro.
Yeah. So, Andre, first of all, I wanted to thank you for your friendship. I think that this has been very important, and just the values that you bring as a person, you can tell by the people that surround you. They all accept that, and they all cherish that. So thank you so much for being a friend. Thank you so much for putting all of this together, and for all the effort that you're putting in Friends of Medicine that is not being unnoticed out there. And you can see it in the communities today. So thank you for all this, Andre.
I appreciate it. And I always say, if it helps one person, then it means a lot to me. That's really what I want to do, help people. I've been through quite a bit myself, and if I can avoid a medical student or nursing student starting their career experiencing some of the hardships and mental health issues that I have experienced along the way, then it's all worth it. So I appreciate you all very much. Thank you for your words, and I look forward to the Money and Medicine workshop. I think it's going to be really exciting.
Awesome.
Okay, guys, thank you. Impact Wealth Advisors, Behind the Scrubs podcast.
I'm Dave Duquette, the founder and president of Impact Wealth Advisors. We're thrilled to be a part of Friends of Medicine and the wonderful work being done to create an impact in the medical community. Impact Wealth Advisors is a comprehensive financial planning firm that specializes in helping medical professionals alleviate the unique stress that revolves around their financial life. Medical professionals typically face challenges such as six-figure student loan debt, high tax rates, lawsuit risks, and delayed savings and retirement planning. However, with the planning process offered by Impact Wealth Advisors, clients can go to work, come home, enjoy time with friends and family without stressing about whether or not they're making the right decisions for their future. We offer a complimentary consultation that can be scheduled by scanning the QR code. If you're a medical professional seeking financial planning assistance, Impact Wealth Advisors is the perfect solution to help you navigate the unique challenges of your profession and can help you work to secure your future.